Imagine discovering a formula to generate free electricity from water, something that could completely change the destiny of the whole world. But the very next moment, the most powerful people on Earth come after you for that exact formula, turning your entire life into a terrifying game. Something very similar happens in our story today. The story begins at the University of Chicago. Worried about growing global pollution and the future depletion of natural resources, the university launches a revolutionary scientific project to extract clean energy from water using hydrogen. To achieve this grand dream, project leader Dr. Paul Shannon puts together a small team. This team includes physicist Dr. Lily Sinclair, project manager Dr. Lu Chen, a promising engineering student named Eddie Kasalevich, and Dr. Alistair Barkley, who all play a crucial role in the research. For the next few months, the entire team completely immerses themselves in the project. Driven by the goal of achieving one of the greatest scientific breakthroughs in human history, they spend most of their time in the lab, neglecting their sleep and personal lives. Instead of giving up due to repeated failures, they treat every mistake as a learning opportunity and keep working with the hope of changing the world. One morning, as the team is preparing for a new experiment, Dr. Paul drops by to check on their progress. They had successfully managed to maintain a sustained fusion for just 4.6 milliseconds, but they were still a long way off from their desired result. After checking the settings and preparing a demonstration, everyone gathers for a fresh test. However, the experiment fails once again. Despite this disappointment, Dr. Barkley encourages the team to learn from it, adjust the data, and try again. That night, Eddie went back home and kept working in his home lab. After several hours, he discovered a sound frequency that could completely stabilize the system. To ensure there was no mistake, he verified the results multiple times before informing the team about his breakthrough. The next day, everyone gathered at the lab and prepared a new test using Eddie's discovery. Within just a few minutes, they achieved the very result they had been searching for months. The system was producing more energy than it consumed, and the experiment was finally a success. While Dr. Paul tried to wrap his head around the biggest achievement of his career, the rest of the team excitedly verified the data. Months of hard work had finally paid off. A celebratory atmosphere filled the lab. Everyone congratulated one another, took photos, and enjoyed this historic moment. During the celebration, Paul had a brief, private conversation with Dr. Barkley regarding how to handle this information. However, the talk was cut short when the rest of the group called them over for some memorable photos. After hours of celebrating, most of the team members started heading home. However, Barkley and Lu Chen stayed behind in the lab to wrap up some remaining work. Just as Eddie was about to leave, he noticed that Lily's car wouldn't start because its battery was drained. Since it was quite late and she had also had a few drinks during the celebration, Eddie decided to drop her home by bus. As soon as the two left, a mysterious van arrived at the lab unnoticed. Inside the building, Barkley and Lu were engrossed in their work. Realizing the immense significance of their discovery, they were planning to share it with the world as soon as possible. Just as several people got out of that mysterious van and entered the lab, Lu Chen heard some strange noises and decided to inspect the building. At that same moment, Eddie was escorting Lily to her building. Upon arriving, he walked her up to her apartment and left her to rest. Before leaving, his eyes fell upon the diplomas and awards hanging on the wall, which stood as a testament to the scientist's brilliant career. After this, Eddie headed back toward the lab to pick up his motorcycle. When he reached there, he noticed that the mysterious van was leaving. Around that same time, he also heard an alarm blaring from inside the building and ran to find out what was happening. As soon as he went inside, he called out to his colleagues repeatedly, but there was no response. He searched the entire building, only to find Dr. Barkley lying dead on the floor with a plastic bag tied over his head. Shocked and unable to believe what he was seeing, Eddie spent several minutes trying to revive him, but it was all in vain. Meanwhile, there was absolutely no sign of Lu Chen anywhere. As Eddie was trying to comprehend what had just happened, he stumbled upon another alarming realization. The system they had stabilized just a few hours prior was now violently unstable. Seeing no way to shut it down or stabilize it, he knew a massive catastrophe was imminent. Pushing the sheer shock of what he had witnessed aside, Eddie grabbed his motorcycle and sped out of the building at full throttle. Just seconds later, a colossal explosion completely obliterated the lab and several surrounding blocks. A blast triggered by the detonators planted by the people from the van. After the blast, Eddie managed to pull himself up and stared at the sheer devastation. A night that had begun with celebrating one of history's greatest scientific milestones had turned into a horrific nightmare. Later, he managed to contact Dr. Paul and informed him that Dr. Barkley had been murdered. Hearing this, Paul was completely stunned. The next morning, the media swarmed the blast site, trying to uncover what had truly transpired during the night. Shortly after, the FBI arrived on the scene. The agents took over the investigation, securing search warrants, ordering wiretaps, and gathering every possible piece of evidence. Meanwhile, the surviving members of the project were brought to the FBI office for questioning. During the interrogation, the agents were intensely focused on finding out who stood to benefit from a technology capable of generating virtually limitless energy. They also pieced together the timeline of that night's celebration and identified Eddie as one of the last people present at the lab before the explosion. Once the initial questioning concluded, Lily, Paul, and Eddie went to Barclay's house to retrieve documents related to the project. As soon as they arrived, they were swarmed by the media. While searching the house, Paul emphasized the critical importance of securing the project's scientific papers. Shortly after, Lily decided to leave. Before heading out, she received a mysterious fax that had apparently been sent by Lu Chen, who had been officially missing since the night of the blast. After examining the document carefully, Lily realized that someone was trying to frame her and that she had become part of a massive conspiracy. Meanwhile, agents Leon and Doyle arrived at the Advanced Research Center to meet with Paul. During the meeting, they revealed that an investigation into Eddie's academic history showed he had left the university under rather strange circumstances. At that same time, Eddie was trying to hide Lily at his flat. However, upon approaching the building, they discovered that the FBI was already there conducting a search. Inside the apartment, agents found a transmitter capable of sending massive amounts of data via satellite. They also discovered large stacks of cash there, which made the suspicion against Eddie grow even deeper. With nowhere else to turn, Eddie and Lily headed toward Paul's building and hid in the parking lot, waiting to meet him. During their conversation, Paul questioned Eddie about the cash found in the apartment. Eddie stated clearly that he had absolutely nothing to do with Barclay's death or the lab explosion. Paul tried to calm them down and advised them to stay away from phones until further notice. Meanwhile, at the FBI office, investigators began suspecting that Paul was withholding critical information regarding the project and the organizations funding it. On the other hand, feeling a sense of relief after finding a trustworthy ally, Lily and Eddie went to a nearby restaurant to rest for a bit and planned their next move. Lily suggested meeting her friend Maggie, whom she trusted completely since they had worked together in the past. However, their plan was interrupted when a special report flashed on the TV, declaring Dr. Lily and Eddie as most wanted. Realizing the danger of being recognized, Eddie told Lily to leave first, hail a cab, and buy 2 tickets to Williams Bay. Lily carefully slipped out of the restaurant and headed toward the station. As she left, she noticed that Eddie had been spotted and agents were already chasing him. Helpless to do anything, she could only keep moving forward, praying that Eddie would somehow manage to escape. Eddie sprinted through the streets of Chicago with FBI agents and police hot on his heels. The chase escalated rapidly, soon drawing in more police cruisers, helicopters, and boats. Dodging his pursuers, Eddie reached a drawbridge and managed to outsmart the agents by using the bridge's mechanics and the surrounding chaos to his advantage. For a few moments, it looked like he was cornered, but he successfully slipped off the bridge, blended past the agents unnoticed, and made his escape. Despite all the odds, Eddie arrived at the train station just in time, where a relieved Lily breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing him safe and sound. After an exhausting journey, the two reached the observatory where Maggie works. She welcomed them warmly, though she couldn't help but crack a joke when she noticed the media labeling them as terrorists. A few days later, Dr. Paul appeared before a special committee to explain what had happened to the project. In his statement, he justified withholding certain scientific information in the name of competition and national security. Meanwhile, with Maggie's help, Lily and Eddie were trying to uncover who was truly behind the explosion, Barclay's murder, and the conspiracy framing them. In Washington, despite being under the watchful eye of the FBI, Paul arrived at a research facility called C Systems in Leesburg, Virginia. The agents tried to pursue him but were denied entry into the premises. Inside, Paul met with Lyman Collier, the chairman of C Systems. Their conversation made it explicitly clear that Lyman was connected to everything, and that the system was still not working according to their expectations. Later, during a meeting, Paul received a tip that Eddie was using a public telephone from Williams Bay. Although the authorities closed in on the location, Eddie sensed the danger and rushed back to the observatory to get Lily. Eddie managed to reach her, but the two were cornered on the roof by a state trooper who had pursued them. Just as they were about to surrender, a helicopter arrived. Instead of assisting the trooper, a man inside the helicopter shot and killed him, leaving Eddie and Lily free to go but effectively framing them for yet another crime. With no time to think, Eddie grabbed the dead trooper's gun and fled with Lily just as more agents were descending upon the observatory. After an exhausting chase, the two spotted a fire rescue boat and escaped via the waterways. Following their escape, they found an empty house where they hid and finally found a brief moment of peace. Since Lily was freezing, Eddie took care of her and prepared a warm bath for her. Meanwhile, agents Leon and Doyle arrived at Paul's house to confront him. They revealed that the majority of his foundation's funding originated from a bank account in the Cayman Islands. Paul attempted to justify this by claiming it was a matter of national security, but the agents made it clear that national security does not justify murdering people on home soil. Back at the empty house, Eddie cooked a meal for Lily using ingredients he found in the fridge, and then went to the garage to repair a car that they could use. Later, Paul met with Lyman Collier to discuss the escalating situation. Their conversation made it obvious that Eddie had become a major liability for them, but at the same time, he was absolutely indispensable because only he knew the exact sound frequencies required to stabilize the system. Meanwhile, after getting the car running, Eddie stepped outside for a walk to clear his head. Upon returning, he noticed a flashlight beam dancing inside the house and realized someone had broken in. Terrified for Lily's safety, he crept back inside and overheard the intruders discussing their next move. With Lily's timely assistance, he managed to overpower them. Checking their gear didn't reveal their exact identities, but it turned up several clues connecting them to Leesburg. Armed with this new lead, the two hit the road toward that town. Upon arriving in Leesburg, Virginia, Lily and Eddie began searching for a way to infiltrate and get to the people behind this entire conspiracy. Following her plan, Lily went into a flower shop and sent flowers to Paul with a hidden note. This delivery instantly caught the eye of the FBI, who intercepted the delivery boy and tried to decode the message. However, the note had already served its purpose as Paul successfully decoded it and understood that Eddie wanted to meet him at the Science Museum that very afternoon. Later, at the designated time, Paul met with Eddie. During their conversation, Paul tried to convince him that the world isn't as simple as it appears and emphasized that their work wasn't finished yet. But Eddie no longer trusted him. Knowing that Lyman's goons were lurking nearby, Paul left shortly after. The moment Paul walked away, a tense chase broke out inside the museum. While trying to escape, Eddie and Lily got separated. Lyman's men managed to corner Lily, knocked her unconscious, and abducted her. Eddie desperately tried to pursue them but failed, only managing to note down the vehicle's license plate number. A few hours later, Lily regained consciousness inside the secure Sea Systems facility. There, she discovered that Lu Chen was still alive, and both of them were now being forced to continue the research they had originally started with Dr. Barkley. Meanwhile, back at the FBI office, Agent Leon was reviewing old recordings of Eddie and Barkley. The more he observed their close relationship, the more convinced he became that Eddie was responsible for neither the murder nor the catastrophic explosion. On the other side, using the vehicle's license plate number and the clues gathered during his investigation, Eddie successfully tracked down the Sea Systems facility. Arriving there, he disguised himself as an employee and slipped inside without raising any suspicion. Once inside, he discovered that Lily and Lu Chen were being forced to replicate the experiment that had previously succeeded. However, shortly after the test began, the system once again started showing signs of instability. The scientists pointed out that having the exact correct frequency was still essential for the process. That night, after most of the staff had left, Eddie sneakily entered the lab and adjusted several parameters of the system. The next morning, the employees discovered that the experiment was finally working. When Paul received this news, he headed to the lab to see it for himself. While everyone was celebrating, he found out that Eddie was the one who had resolved the issue. Meanwhile, Lyman began to suspect that Paul was hiding something. Shortly after, Paul secretly met with his secretary, Anita, and arranged a meeting outside the complex. When he returned to his office, he found Eddie waiting for him. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted when Lyman and his armed men barged in. Eddie seized this moment to transmit crucial data regarding Sea Systems and the individuals involved in the conspiracy directly to the FBI. Simultaneously, he remotely altered the parameters of the experiment system, instantly turning the celebratory atmosphere into a full-blown emergency. The readings began to skyrocket, and the pressure within the system mounted rapidly. The technicians desperately attempted to regain control, only to discover that the process was now self-sustaining and could not be shut down by any conventional means. As the scientists scrambled to find a solution, panic spread throughout the entire facility. The situation deteriorated even further when Lyman completely lost his composure. Realizing that everything was unraveling, he drew his gun, shot Lu Chen, and took Lily hostage. Several team members tried to intervene, but the chaos only escalated. As the system neared its critical point, alarms blared across the entire complex, making an immediate evacuation absolutely necessary. The technicians reported that the pressure was continuously building and that the system had spun entirely out of control. In the midst of this frenzy, some personnel tried to force a system restart, which completely backfired. The computers stopped responding altogether, leaving the system even more volatile. While most of the employees were evacuating the complex, Eddie somehow managed to reunite with Lily. At that same moment, Lyman ordered everyone else to get out but left Eddie and Lily trapped behind. Knowing that things were now completely beyond recovery, Paul abandoned the lab along with the remaining staff. As Eddie and Lily tried to make a break for it, the guards attacked them, locked them inside the containment area, and fled. Trapped inside, they discovered that all the security doors had automatically locked down. With no obvious way out, the two began searching for an alternative escape route. Meanwhile, agents Leon and Doyle arrived at Sea Systems via helicopter, completely unaware of the massive emergency unfolding inside the complex. Utilizing his technical expertise, Eddie mapped out an escape route through the lower levels of the facility. Together with Lily, he managed to slip out of the lab and advance through the service area. Meanwhile, in another part of the building, Paul and Lyman were trying to make their exit via the elevator. On their way out, Lyman once again showed an intense interest in a disk containing the gathered data, which he considered to be incredibly valuable. By this point, Paul had realized that Lyman had become a lethal threat to everyone. Convinced that letting him walk away free would only result in more deaths, Paul drew his gun and shot Lyman right inside the elevator. Immediately after, Paul stepped out of the elevator and manually deactivated the containment system. This unlocked several sealed doors, giving Eddie and Lily a real fighting chance to escape. As they neared the exit, they were intercepted by several of Lyman's henchmen, who were still unaware of their boss's death. Eddie fought them off, and after a fierce struggle, managed to overpower them. Reunited once more, Eddie and Lily kept moving forward alongside the evacuating staff. By this time, the entire complex had reached the brink of total collapse. System after system was failing, and danger warnings echoed throughout the building. Ultimately, Eddie and Lily successfully made it out of Sea Systems just moments before a massive explosion ripped through the facility. Standing outside, the employees, agents, and rescue teams watched with anxiety, waiting to see if anyone else had managed to survive. Shortly after, Eddie and Lily emerged safely. Seeing the two of them brought an immense wave of relief to everyone present. Even the FBI agents, who had been chasing them with suspicion for days, realized that they had finally escaped a massive conspiracy that had tried to claim their lives on multiple occasions. With the fresh evidence and a major portion of the truth coming to light, the agents began reorganizing the investigation to uncover the true scale of the entire operation. Meanwhile, Paul quietly slipped away from the area with his secretary, Anita. Unlike most of the people involved, he managed to evade any immediate consequences, leaving behind the destruction of Sea Systems and the bloodshed caused by the project. A short while later, the entire complex caved in and was completely obliterated, erasing almost every trace of the facility. And with that, this story comes to an end. I hope you enjoyed this video.